the Copper Age. When humans first mastered metal, history often glosses over the remarkable transitional period that bridged the Neolithic era and the Bronze Age. Before bronze tools and weapons revolutionized ancient societies, the Copper Age, also known as the Chalcolithic period, transformed human development through the first systematic use of metal. This fascinating chapter in our collective past deserves far more attention than it typically receives in popular media and education. If you're enjoying this deep dive into human prehistory, please take a moment to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more archaeological discoveries and historical explorations. The term Chalcolithic elegantly captures this transitional era, deriving from the Greek words chalkos, copper, and lithos, stone. While stone remained the dominant material for toolmaking, this linguistic fusion tells us something crucial. Humanity had begun moving beyond the Stone Age as communities across different regions started adopting metallurgy. The lithic suffix might misleadingly imply this period was still part of the Stone Age, but in reality, a revolutionary technological shift was underway. What makes the Chalcolithic particularly fascinating is its asynchronous adoption across different regions. The timeline varies dramatically depending on geographic location. In the southern Levant, for instance, the Copper Age flourished between approximately 4500 BCE and 3500 BCE. Meanwhile, Great Britain only entered this technological phase around 2500 BCE, experiencing a remarkably brief Copper Age that concluded as quickly as 2200 BCE. This staggered implementation demonstrates how technological innovation didn't spread uniformly across ancient communities. Metal wasn't the only revolutionary development during this transformative period. Human creativity and spirituality evolved to unprecedented levels of complexity. Communities began crafting elaborately painted pottery with sophisticated motifs and conducting ritualized burials that reflected increasingly complex belief systems. These practices reveal a deeper concern with the afterlife and cosmic understanding than had been evident in earlier periods. The birth of metallurgy, the technology that would eventually enable the construction of everything from vehicles to computers to entire cities, began with copper metallurgy. This innovation developed on a significant scale first in Asia, making it the earliest region to officially enter the Copper Age. While scattered evidence of early copper working has been discovered throughout Europe, these findings don't demonstrate widespread technological adoption across various communities. Most evidence points to the Fertile Crescent as the specific birthplace of copper metallurgy, likely emerging shortly after 6000 BCE. Archaeological discoveries suggest that inhabitants of ancient settlements like Jarmo and Tel Magzalia, located in modern-day Iraq, were experimenting with lead production before discovering copper's potential. These pioneering metallurgists melted hand-selected copper ore in shallow pits dug into the earth, using burning charcoal to generate heat. Through countless trials and errors, the original research and development, these innovative communities gradually learned to provide airflow to control temperatures during the smelting process. They likely covered their pits with clay and created openings facing the prevailing wind. This technology would eventually evolve into bellows, where metal workers could blow through tubes to supply oxygen and directed airflow to their smelting operations. This fundamental furnace structure remained relatively unchanged throughout prehistory and much of ancient recorded history. Evidence indicates that copper mining developed in this region as early as 7000 BCE, with basic stone picks used to extract metal from natural deposits. As metallurgical knowledge increased, so did the sophistication of mining operations. I'm curious, what do you think these ancient innovators were creating with their newly discovered copper? Share your theories in the comments below. If you're finding this journey through the Copper Age fascinating, remember to hit that like button and share this video with friends who appreciate human history. Tools and artifacts of the Copper Age. Among the most common tools fashioned during this era were basic copper axes, utilized for felling trees, clearing vegetation, and quite possibly as weapons. As human populations divided into distinct communities, conflicts over territory and resources became inevitable, leading to the rapid development of cutting weapons. Other significant Copper Age artifacts include spearheads, knives, and even rudimentary swords. Copper was also employed to create sewing pins, plates, and vessels for daily use. These metal objects allowed early humans to create more durable and reusable utensils, reducing pressure on constant resource replacement and fundamentally changing material culture. The Middle East also witnessed the foundational elements of civilization emerging toward the conclusion of the Chalcolithic period. From approximately 4000 BCE to 3100 BCE, this region entered the Uruk period, named after the Sumerian city of Uruk, a subdivision of the Chalcolithic that would extend into the early Bronze Age. During this critical transition, the first signs of organized urban life appeared. Cohesive cities and settlements developed adjacent to agricultural lands where food was readily available. These settlements would form the basis of Sumeria, one of history's earliest fully developed civilizations, demonstrating how metallurgical innovation often coincided with broader social transformation. Expansion into East Asia. Copper artifacts have been discovered in East Asia dating back to the 5th millennium BCE. These findings, unearthed in what is now China, come from the Yangshao and Hongshan cultures. As the technology spread throughout the region, numerous societies along the Yellow River Valley had mastered copper working by the 4th and 3rd millennia BCE. Chinese artisans developed distinctive techniques for manipulating metal, adapting the technology to meet their unique cultural needs and aesthetic traditions. They crafted ritual ornaments, bells, and small tools reflecting their distinctive artistic sensibilities, markedly different from Western styles developing simultaneously, but independently. Megalithic structures and evolving spirituality. Ancient communities during the Copper Age continued utilizing megalithic structures that had become characteristic of the Neolithic period. One of the most impressive examples of Chalcolithic megalithic architecture can be seen in present-day Israel at the Rujm El Hiri site. This extraordinary monument, also known as the Wheel of Giants, is situated near the Sea of Galilee. True to its nickname, it consists of a massive ring of standing stones interconnected by structures resembling wheel spokes. At the circle's center lies a burial site used for farewell ceremonies to the deceased. These megalithic monuments were frequently employed throughout Europe and Asia as religious or spiritual sites, integral to ancient belief systems. Many still stand today, silent witnesses to forgotten rituals and cosmologies lost to time, yet testifying to the organizational capabilities and spiritual concerns of Copper Age societies. The Copper Age in Europe. The Chalcolithic period in ancient Europe began approximately in 5000 BCE and concluded around 2000 BCE. Copper was first utilized in manufacturing in southeastern Europe, in regions that now comprise Serbia, Romania, and Bulgaria. This technology likely spread from the Near East and Levant, carried by migrating populations. Many of these communities crafted cutting weapons like axes and spearheads, used both defensively and offensively. Metallurgy transformed not just toolmaking, but social organization itself, creating new hierarchies based on control of mineral resources and specialized knowledge of metalworking techniques. Before we continue exploring these fascinating developments, I'd like to invite you to subscribe to our channel and activate notifications so you won't miss our upcoming historical documentaries. Now, let's examine one of the most extraordinary discoveries from the European Chalcolithic period. Here we go. The Iceman, a window into the past. Perhaps the most remarkable Chalcolithic discovery is Ötzi, the Iceman. Found in the alpine region of the Ötztal mountain range, Ötzi represents Europe's oldest natural mummy and provides an incredibly intimate glimpse into human life during the Copper Age. Ötzi was initially discovered in September 1991 by two tourists near the Austria-Italy border. Initially believing they had found a recent body, they alerted authorities who eventually retrieved the remains several days later with the assistance of mountaineers. Meticulous scientific studies followed as specialists thoroughly examined Ötzi. They determined he had consumed ibex meat before death and carried dried bacon for later consumption. Copper particles were found in his hair, and he carried a copper blade, suggesting he might have been a copper smelter in life. one of Europe's metallurgical pioneers. Analysis of his bones supported this theory, indicating he undertook many long walks across rough terrain, likely to obtain copper or possibly to hunt. Ötzi's clothing consisted of a coat over which he wore a cape made of woven grass. A leather loincloth and shoes, along with a cap fashioned from bear fur, completed his attire. Perhaps most striking about Ötzi's remains is evidence of a violent end. Initially thought to have perished after severe snowfall caused freezing, perspectives changed in 2001 when researchers discovered an arrowhead lodged in his left shoulder. This finding led scientists to conclude he died from blood loss and was possibly a murder victim. Additionally, his hands were bruised and cut, and blood from 4 other individuals was discovered on his belongings. This has been interpreted to suggest that Ötzi killed 2 people, possibly with the same arrow that pierced his shoulder. Some blood on his clothing might have belonged to an ally he attempted to bring to safety, and the arrowhead might have been removed and reinserted after death. Initially proposed to have died where he was found, evidence suggests he might have been brought to the mountains and periodically moved with the changing seasons. Various conclusions have been drawn about Ötzi's death, ranging from murder victim to casualty in an undocumented prehistoric conflict, or possibly even a ritual sacrifice. Evolving funeral practices. Across Europe, other death-related changes were occurring. New funeral practices emerged throughout the continent, including early versions of modern burial customs. These involved the first cemeteries, where the dead were removed from settlements to be interred in resting places away from home. This practice likely emerged from knowledge about the dangers of disease spread from corpses, later evolving into a method of remembering and honoring the deceased. This led to the world's first formal funerals, in which local chiefs or shamans were responsible for placing the dead to rest. In these early years, funerals were accompanied by speeches about the deceased person's life, skills, and experiences. In some locations, such as ancient Bulgaria, many individuals were buried with substantial quantities of gold, copper, and what were presumably their former possessions in life. Some graves were empty but contained belongings of people who died elsewhere, or whose remains could not be recovered. Don't you find it fascinating how our ancestors developed complex rituals to honor their dead? If you have any thoughts about these ancient funeral practices, share them in the comments. And remember to activate the notification bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming documentaries. The invention of the wheel. During the Chalcolithic period, southeastern Europe soon became home to one of the most important inventions in all of human history, the wheel. This innovation led to the creation of carts and wagons that could be pulled by domesticated animals like cattle and horses. This development not only established the foundation for nearly all land vehicles and machinery known to humanity today, but also allowed ancient humans to transport goods and materials far more efficiently. Large quantities of copper could be moved across hills and mountains without additional strain. Fields could be plowed, saving time and labor during planting, and trade could now easily revolutionize intercultural connections. The wheel completely transformed human mobility and accelerated cultural and technological exchange between different regions. Communities that adopted this technology experienced a qualitative leap in their capacity to build, trade, and expand territorially. The Copper Age in Cyprus. One of the most significant archaeological sites for the European Copper Age is the island of present-day Cyprus. Prehistoric Cypriots excelled in creating and painting pottery, constructing terracotta figures, and developing small copper and eventually bronze objects for decorative and funerary purposes. In fact, the English word copper derives from cyprium, or metal of Cyprus, indicating this island's importance in metallurgical history. Copper deposits in Cyprus were so abundant that the island became one of the principal centers for metal production and trade in the eastern Mediterranean. The Chalcolithic in Europe is believed to have concluded with the arrival of the bell beaker culture across the continent. Named after the inverted bell-shaped drinking vessels discovered at their sites throughout Western Europe, this culture extended from the Iberian Peninsula and British Isles to present-day Croatia in the south and Poland in the north. These people would develop advancements in bronze working, archery, ornamentation, and religion, helping create a more unified culture throughout the continent at the beginning of the subsequent Bronze Age. The Copper Age in Africa. Copper technology is believed to have been introduced to Africa through the Levant, establishing itself first in Egypt. Copper was prevalent in ancient Egypt's Old Kingdom, and copper production facilities have been discovered near the famous pyramids. The ancient Egyptians pioneered advanced copper smelting techniques, using bellows and blowpipes to direct air into molten copper to improve the final product. Various ancient burial sites throughout Egypt contain evidence that copper ornaments were interred with the dead, accompanied by vessels and even weapons. Other copper objects from ancient Egypt include needles, scissors, saws, axes, harpoons, knives, and arrowheads. Egyptian sophisticated culture elevated metalworking beyond utility to artistic expression, creating beautifully detailed pieces reflecting their complex worldview. Copper production may have been independently discovered in sub-Saharan Africa, with little or no influence from the Levant. This is evidenced by copper artifacts unearthed in the Agadez region of Niger, dating to around 2000 BCE. The copper technology here wasn't fully developed, and considerable trial and error appears to have been used to shape it. This suggests these communities were in the process of inventing the technology themselves, rather than receiving knowledge or assistance from external miners or traders. Different furnace styles were also experimented with until the desired result was finally achieved. However, information from tropical sub-Saharan Africa is more difficult to explore. Few or no dates are available for copper artifacts unearthed in countries like Nigeria, and the oldest known copper artifacts, south of the equator, date to around 345 CE. Metallurgy in the Americas. Similar to sub-Saharan Africa, people inhabiting the isolated continents of the Americas independently developed metallurgy during the Copper Age. This was perhaps first explored in Mexico, in regions that are now Guerrero and Nayarit. From these beginnings, the Mixtec civilizations are believed to have leveraged the technology to manufacture weapons and tools, eventually followed by the Aztecs. Copper was being used in these regions thousands of years before the first Europeans set foot on the continent. Pre-Columbian metalworkers developed remarkably advanced techniques, including welding, hammering, repoussé, and lost wax casting. They created not only functional tools, but also elaborate ritual ornaments and decorative pieces reflecting these cultures' sophisticated cosmology. The technology eventually spread to Andean civilizations and finally to the North American continent. In the Andes, cultures like the Moche and Chimu elevated metalworking to extraordinary levels, often preferring gold and silver, but also using copper to create alloys like tumbaga, a gold-copper mixture with unique properties. Recent research and conclusion. Though we know relatively little about the Copper Age compared to the Stone Age that preceded it, it's important to remember this period lasted approximately only 1,000 years in any given location. New evidence and discoveries about these ancient people's way of life continue to be unearthed. Recent studies conducted in 2023 have demonstrated that the Asian region now called Oman was a major copper supplier during the Chalcolithic and subsequent Bronze Age years. Excavations in this region have revealed extensive trade networks connecting southern Arabia with Mesopotamia, the Indus Valley, and possibly even more distant regions. Additionally, new archaeological techniques like isotope analysis and ancient DNA studies are providing unprecedented information about Chalcolithic population mobility, diets, and health and disease patterns. This research allows us to reconstruct with greater precision not only the period's technology but also aspects of daily life that previously remained hidden. The Copper Age represents a fascinating transitional period in human history, where ancient Neolithic traditions began transforming under the impulse of new technologies. Human communities were experimenting with new materials, developing specialized skills, and establishing foundations for the complex civilizations that would emerge during the Bronze Age. If you've made it this far, I sincerely thank you for joining me on this journey through one of human history's most transformative periods. If you've enjoyed this documentary about the Copper Age, don't forget to like it, share it with other history enthusiasts, and of course subscribe to our channel for more content like this. Which aspect of the Copper Age did you find most fascinating? Share your thoughts in the comments section. Until our next documentary, where we'll continue exploring the mysteries of our shared past together.